Welcome to the Transformational Soul Show with your host, Ruth Soltman. Are you ready to experience more stability in your life? You can change your life and be who you are meant to be, your authentic self.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Transformational Soul. My name is Ruth Soltman, and I'm really glad you could be here tonight. I want to say hello if you are here for the first time, and welcome back if you've been here before. And I want to say a special hello to all of you over on Rumble. So nice that you could join us tonight. How's everybody doing out there? I know it's been a lot of high temperatures all over the country, so I hope everyone's staying cool. I hope you guys can join us this Saturday, June 25th at 8 p.m. for the Spiritual Message Circle. For a donation of $10 or more, you can get a message from our panel of readers. It's so much fun. If you've never done it before and maybe you're a little hesitant, just come on and watch and see what we're all about, because I know you will enjoy it. Hi, Heather. So nice to see you here. And I want to thank everyone that has written a testimonial for our show or show hosts. It's a really great way for you guys to give back and show your love and appreciation for what we do. If you would like to send in a testimonial but haven't done it yet, you can just go to the Goldylocks Productions website and click on testimonials at the top of the page, type in what you want to say and hit submit. It's actually that simple. Hi, Sarah. Nice to see you. You snuck in. I didn't even see you up there. If you would like to send a tip or donation, you can do that via my Venmo at Ruth-Soltman, Soltman, or you can also use the super chat, super sticker feature on YouTube or the Rumble rant on Rumble. And also, if you would like to sponsor this show or any of the other Goldylocks Production shows, you can contact my producer, Tiffany White Sagewoman, and she will let you know how you can do that. Next week, my special guest will be the psychic medium of Sarasota, Carol Ann Carey. I hope you can join me for that. Carol Ann was going to be here last week, but she had some computer issues, so she's got that resolved now, and I've got her rescheduled for next week. The Words of Wisdom segment gives you the opportunity to come on live with me to tell your story, to own your story. Your story will inspire and motivate someone else. If you would like to come on and tell yours, you can message me on Facebook or email me at ruth@ruthsoltman.com. Now, today we do have a Words of Wisdom segment, and I'm really excited about it. Laura Romeiro is here to talk about her healing journey and how she healed from grief and loss. Now, Laura is a certified spiritual healer, certified medical Reiki Master teacher, bioenergy healer, and animal communicator. And you may remember her as the host of the Angels and Healing Light show right here on Goldylocks Productions. Well, hello and welcome, Laura. It's so nice to see you.
Thank you, Ruth. I'm very happy to be here with you tonight and with everyone tonight. Hey, everyone.
Well, I just want to thank you once again for agreeing to come on. And I know sometimes it's not easy to come on and talk about our healing journey.
Well, you're right about that. I've certainly been through one over the last 6 or 8 months, but I really feel it's important to share with people what I've learned because, we all go through it. It's like getting your teeth cleaned. It's like having to get your eyes examined, whether you like it or not, you have to go through it. And there is a lot to be learned from it. And, it's another one of those things that doesn't come with an instruction book. So let us use this as an opportunity to help each other through one of the worst times of our lives, the hardest times of our lives. So that's my goal tonight.
Awesome. So what would you like people to know about what you've been through?
Well, I think the most important thing to know, Ruth, is that, uh, in terms of grief, it comes in many forms, of course. It affects people in different ways. It has its own time. It runs its own course, but it's not something you can do by yourself. And so the most important thing is that you need. It's not something to go through by yourself. So whether you are seeking assistance from your loved ones, from friends, professional counseling, it's just something that is made much easier to go through with other people. They're to guide you and support you and take some of the load off of you that tends to pile up.
Right.
So that is really the most important thing to know.
So now for the people that don't know, oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
It's just that it's not something, to do alone.
Right.
Everybody needs a little boost, maybe a lot of boost.
And I know for those that might not be familiar with your story, you're referring to the loss of your mom.
Right. And many of you know my mom because she was watching every one of my shows when I was doing Angels and Healing Light, and everyone always waved, "Hi, Mom," but she watched every single one of them. So some of you are familiar with Irene. And Irene my mom Irene had some problems with her spine fracture, and had a procedure that unfortunately didn't go well. So she was not able to come home from that spinal procedure. She ended up in nursing home rehabilitation so she could get physical therapy and people to help her move around. So she was there for a couple of months, and at the end of December, she was starting to have back pain again that wasn't resolving. So her nurse recommended she go to the emergency department to get that checked out. And it turned out that she had another fracture. So admitted to, and when she went into the hospital, to the emergency department, she was very cognizant. She was talkative. She was doing crossword puzzles, calling friends, texting, joking, laughing, perfectly normal. And within about 3 days of going into the hospital, she really started to change. Still a mystery to me to this day, and I think to everyone that cared for her. I think the biggest takeaway, or probably what happened, is she just decided she had enough. But she kind of stopped eating, and she was on so many pain medications that sometimes it was really hard to get those just the right amount and the right type for her to help with her pain. And so she had a lot of times where she would just be completely out of it for 5, 6 hours. Then she just quit eating. So after and because of COVID, it was a little difficult to find beds still at a hospital. So they were trying to find a neurosurgeon to look at her back, and ended up, after about 5 days, transferring her to another hospital so the neurosurgeon could see if there's anything they could do to help her, which turns out, it wasn't possible. But in the meantime, she was, her labs were always really fantastic. Her EKGs were fantastic. Physiologically, her tests were really, really good. But there were several times I'd remarked to the doctor that she looked like she was dying. And he said, "I know, I agree with you, but I don't know why, because I can't find anything wrong. Her labs are great. Her EKG is great. Nobody can figure out what's happening. We've done every test we can possibly think of." So, she just kept declining, and finally got to the point where after 3 weeks, I think, of being hospitalized, 2 or 3 weeks, she was just in such pain, and the medication wasn't helping. It just got to the point where I said, she needs palliative care. And I want you all to understand too, if you haven't been through this before, hospitals, unfortunately, aren't the best help when it comes to making that decision. Sometimes if there's a known terminal illness, for instance, where you know what the outcome's going to be, then of course they can guide you. But for a situation that my mom went through, there really wasn't much guidance. And actually, I was told that doctors get about 1 or 2 hours of hospice training while they're in med school, and that's about it. So they don't really even though it's all part of living, and many people, pass away when they're in a hospital for one reason or another, they don't get a lot of training on how to handle it. So it was a real big challenge for me to know what decision to make, because I still didn't know what was wrong with her. Mm-hmm. The only thing I knew is that her pain was getting worse, and there was no way she was ever going to recover from her fractured spine, and with her medical problems and her past spinal issues, that it was just going to continue to get worse. Mm-hmm. So it was really, it was agonizing to make that decision to put her in hospice. But I knew as soon as the nurse looked at her she looked at her for about 20 seconds. She said, "Yes, we can help your mom." And right then I knew it was the right thing to do. But when they tell you things like, well, we're going to take her off of all of her medications, it really hit, oh boy, am I making the right decision? Did I just sign her death certificate? Well, of course I didn't, but I was starting to think that way. And so we made the arrangements for that to happen. And I'll tell you that getting her into the hospice that night, I think she got there in the evening, and her nurse called me and said, "I just received your mom, and I want you to know that I'm going to make sure that she gets a good night's sleep." And I thought, perfect. She hasn't had a good night's sleep in years. So that really made me feel good that she was going to be able to rest and relax. And so, that was actually kind of traumatic, that time from realizing there's nothing that they could do for her spine and making the decision to put her in palliative care. It wasn't kind of traumatic. It was traumatic because it really didn't have a lot of guidance. And I could only go by my instinct, my intuition, and what I was feeling in my heart is that, this is enough. Mm-hmm. So that part was very traumatic. And even though I'd reached out to several hospital staff and even said to them, if this was your mom, what would you do? And, no one would really give me a very clear answer. It was pretty vague. So getting her there, I knew was the right thing to do. I stopped worrying about her from that point forward. They took care of her. They brush her hair back and tell her how beautiful she was. She was comfortable. She just looked fabulous, and they treated her and they treated me very well too. Mm-hmm. So they were extremely supportive. And I think she ended up what they called terminal pain, and that's why they couldn't manage her medication. It's probably, I think, from all her spinal fractures, maybe it was just her nervous system just completely inflamed. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing. They said, really that kind of pain can only be managed by IV drugs. It's extremely difficult to treat. But they took great care of her and kept her comfortable. I got to spend time with her, where we couldn't, because she was so sick before or not feeling well, we did not have a very good opportunity to express the love for each other that we felt. So that was an opportunity for me to do that. And it was, a lot of, I did a lot of grieving for that. She lasted for a week. So I did a lot of grieving during that week. I got a lot of it done. And, excuse me, the nurses were so supportive. And a couple of them said, I'm really going to recommend grief counseling. Have you thought about that? And I'm like, yeah, great. That sounds like fun. No, thanks. Why would I want to continue this? Right. And so another one mentioned it, and I think 3 of them mentioned it, during that week, that we really recommend grief counseling. And one nurse said to me that, it really, when my mom went through this, it really helped me be myself again. And that comment intrigued me because I thought, I've been taking care of her for so long, and there's been so much happening in the last several months for her, mm-hmm. that you really do get absorbed into their lives, and it just kind of takes over. And so I guess I put it on the back burner, but I thought, oh, that's the last thing I want to do is just keep going through this again. But guess what? Grief has its own little way, and it just doesn't go away.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, my dad died. Two of my brothers died. I've been through this before. I don't need grief counseling. And what scared me, I'll tell you, is that one girlfriend of mine, and I'm sorry, I can't remember exactly who it is, but she said, my mom died 13 years ago and I still cry every day.
Oh, no.
I said, what? Oh, no. And I said, that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible way to live. And another one had mentioned to me, it wasn't quite that long, but it had been several years, and she was still grieving deeply every day. And I thought, no, I can't live like that. I just can't live like that. I'm not going to live like that. I can't be in that kind of pain. And I even told the grief counselor, I said, that's what arthritis is for. And I can't. So that's what really pushed me into calling the grief counselor. I'm like, well, I'm not sure what to expect here, but I know that I do not want to be in pain for the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. So I made that call. I had no idea what to expect. I really had no idea. I made sure that I wanted one-on-one. I didn't want to be in a group with other people and feel their pain on top of my own. So, that pain, you all many of you know, it's not just heartbreak, it's a physical pain. Mm-hmm. And it feels like you've been run over by a truck sometimes. So I made my appointment for an individual session with my counselor, Mr. James, who is just the most amazing, helpful person who helped me get through this. And I really had no idea what to expect. So it wasn't what I expected. I thought, I just don't want to sit there and cry through this for an hour. I'm tired of doing that. I'm exhausted from doing that. In the hospice, they have those little itty boxes of Kleenex that are about the size of an index card. Now, how helpful is that? No, I need something like a little bit bigger if you're in hospice. You need something bigger than that index size box of Kleenex.
Definitely.
So I think, first stop, Walgreens, big box of Kleenex. And waterproof mascara. That's important too.
Yes, it is.
And so when I made my appointment, I just told him exactly. He said, well, what do you hope to, why are you here? Tell me what happened. And I told him, I'm just afraid that I don't want to live in this pain. So I need to we need to get through this because I'm done with it. I don't want to be in pain anymore. Okay, he said. So I, with a little bit of talking through what had transpired with my mom, and I found out that, not only is he an ordained minister, he was also very experienced in helping people that had been in hospice and helping them through their transition and helping their families and helping the staff of the hospice as well. He also counseled them when there were people that passed away that they had cared for. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, well, this guy's got a lot of experience. He knows what he's talking about. So that made me feel better. And so we talked and I told him how I felt. And I'll tell you, there are some times when I just rambled. Rambled about, I don't know, being from Detroit and things that had absolutely nothing to do with anything. That I rambled, and he, every once in a while would tell me the worst jokes on the planet. It would make me laugh so hard. But here's the Kleenex if you need it. And I'm like, I really don't want to go cry my head off again. So after my first session with him, and he says, unfortunately, Laura, this is not going to be like, okay, you'll be all better in 6 weeks or 4 weeks. He said, grief is a journey. It is not, a point A to point B. And I'm, oh, really? No, sorry to tell you, because I'm figuring, okay, well, I can get through this in 6 weeks and I'll be fine because I'm done. I want to be done. I just want to be done with it. No, that's not how it works. I'm like, okie dokie, if you say so. But he gave me some homework to do, and I came back a couple of weeks later. But I'll tell you, the minute I remember walking out the door and I sat down in my car and pulled out of the driveway, all of a sudden, I felt so much lighter. And I don't know what happened in there. I really don't. But I just felt, oh my God, I felt so much better than I'd felt in like 3 years.
Wow.
It was, I mean, just in 55 minutes that we were together and didn't even really talk that much. But to get into very deep details at that time, I felt so much better immediately. I think, wow, this is great. I was very relieved to find that I enjoyed it. That it was helpful, and it wasn't that difficult, actually. He told me that I'd already done a lot of the work. And I think I did it that week when my mom was in hospice, when I finally could understand what was happening with her.
Yeah. And
so I'd already gotten through quite a bit of some of the hard parts. But it was just an amazing feeling after 1 hour. The next time I went back, we talked some more, and I rambled some more, and he told me another bad joke, and we laughed, and I sniffled a little. I still was okay. I wasn't boo-hooing or anything. But all of this that I went through I think I went maybe 6 times. But every time I left, I felt so much better. It was like just this tremendous weight was being lifted from around my whole body. And I learned so much. I learned that dying is complicated. Go figure. We all do it. It's not new. But why is it so dull and complicated? It's complicated. Grief is complicated. There are very many layers to grief. And just when you think you got through something, there's a little something that slides in there like, really? You have to. And so, there's things that just kind of slide in there. It's like, okay, you managed that, you dealt with that one, and now we're going to come in and deal with this one. And many times those little layers were a surprise to me. But the beauty of it is, once I realized that and dealt with whatever that particular layer was, it was done with, and it was gone. And so many, there's kind of an up and there's a down, and there's, when you're going through this process, and maybe, you have your grief and you have to deal with relationship issues, which we certainly had, my mom and I. She was a very, very different person than she had been in the past. And that was very, very hard to understand, why she was like she was. And that took a lot of healing too, because I had a lot of anger about that and a lot of hurt. And so, you have to kind of go through that, resolving relationship issues. And then, eventually you realize that, there's a new you, your new life and your new you, and integrating to that and allowing yourself to get into that and realizing that, this is just a process that has many layers and many nuances, and it doesn't come with advance warning for the most part. The things that, might just spring up out of nowhere, but you can get through it with the help of others. You get through it by treating yourself well and gently and with care, which for me, I had no interest in doing anything for myself except crawling in a corner and reading a book. But, like James were telling me, you have to take good care of yourself. Well, I didn't even have the energy to do that. I didn't really care. They're like, well, do some exercising, do some journaling. Like, I surely don't want to think anymore about what I don't want to think about it anymore, but gee, I have no choice. It just pops up.
Yeah.
journaling, exercising, making sure you're eating well, getting the help from your friends, from your loved ones, and realizing that, life is different now. And of course, life is different from one minute to the next, but in a big picture, that what you had is not the same, and it's different. And you have to learn how to go forward with that,
You have to adjust.
You do. And you have to be okay with that, and know that, there is that light at the end of the tunnel. So the the time that I spent with a grief counselor, I tell anybody with ears that can hear me, it is the best thing since sliced bread. It made a tremendous amount of difference in my life, and I recommend it to everyone, because I'll tell you what else happened. We were down to I finally got to the point where I said, okay, I don't think this is going to be my last visit, or next one's going to be my last visit. I'm okay. I don't think I need to come anymore. And I thought, what a great accomplishment. I felt like, oh, wow. It just felt like such an accomplishment to get to that point. And then my dog died. Completely unexpectedly, and absolutely devastated us. And that was my brother Wally's dog, who died about 4 years ago. So we were just shocked and devastated. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. I have to go through this all over again. It was horrible. So I was almost in a panic. I'm like, no, I need to come. I need to see you again. And, James had said to me, he says, this is good that this happened now, because you have the tools to handle it. You know how to handle it. You know what to do. I'm like, well, I don't think it's good, but I know what you mean. But he was right.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, he was right. Thank God he's so logical, and because I was just like, no, I don't want to go through this again. Like, I don't have any choice.
Yeah. So when the dog passed away, did you have that same gut-wrenching feeling as you did like when your mom passed? Was it the feeling you had the same?
Yeah, it was horrible. We had no idea. No idea. And, we had to make the decision to let her go. And it was like, you got to be kidding me. This is not completely, taken to the vet for the problem everybody thought she had on a hunch. The doctor did another test and found out that, she actually had pleural effusion, as her lungs were completely filled with fluid. The only space left for air was in her trachea, and she was slowly drowning.
Oh, geez.
And just think that she had a sudden onset of a tumor that just exploded. So we were, like, dumbstruck, I think is the word. Dumbstruck. And so we, it was just not a good thing. But, it turned out, it went okay in terms of the dog, Luxie. I'm sure some of you have heard her bark. She was one with a really, really, really loud bark, the German Shepherd. And she went very peacefully, and she kind of started nodding off before they even gave her the medication to relax her. So she had already, relaxed. And so I think she was ready to go, but we weren't ready for that. Wow. So it was really a double whammy.
I got to tell you, that story just gave me chills, because something very similar happened to me. After, it was probably maybe 2 years or so, maybe 2.5 after my mom passed. I had her dog, and just one day the dog stops drinking water, stops eating. I take her outside. She has a seizure. She flops over, hits her head on the concrete, flops back the other way. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never seen that before. So I called the vet, and they told me to bring her in. And when I took her in, she had, just out of the blue, she had, she was in last stage kidney failure. But this dog, like, they wouldn't take her in until the next morning, because they were, it was after hours. So I had to carry her from room to room. She had not enough energy to go from room to room. So when we got to the vet, I go to reach in and get her out of the car. She jumps out of the car and ran to the vet's door. I'm like,
Wow.
well, maybe she's not that bad. And then we go in and they did some blood tests and the vet says, are you ready to let her go? I'm like, no. And because this was my mom's dog. So anyways, I ended up having to because they said she was in enormous pain. And when I got in the car, I mean, like I cried like I never cried before. It hit me so hard. So I know exactly what you mean. You know, because I had thought, wow, I'm kind of over this grief thing now. And then that happened and it just devastated me. I sat in the car for probably 30 minutes just crying before I even went home.
Yeah, it's painful.
It is. Especially when it happens just out of the blue like that.
Yeah.
Coming. I mean, she was old, you know, probably like 13 or something, but still.
Still.
I mean, she had been perfectly healthy before that. But I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a human or an animal. I mean, grief is grief. You know,
grief is grief. And, you know, you're so right. And what's interesting is even the fact that we had another cat, I mean, 3 other dogs in the house, plus my mom's cat, there was still that empty space that was so visceral when you went in the house. I mean, there's like, oh my God, it was like a vacuum. And that was hard. I got some information from, it's not funny, but it's interesting. The veterinarian sent some pamphlet about grief when you lose your pet, and it lists all of these symptoms of things that you can experience. And one of the things they mention is a sense of silence or a sense that something is missing, you know, that physical sense, but the same steps as a human, you same feeling, same thing. It's just, when your heart's broken, it's broken.
Yes, that's true. Now, after your mom passed, did hospice reach out to you afterwards?
Yes.
Yes, because I know, like, when my dad was in hospice, which he was only in there for like a week, but afterwards, maybe 2, afterwards, they reached out a lot. They still came over to check on everyone and see how everyone was doing. When my mom passed, they weren't like that. It was 2 different, you know, chapters or whatever of hospice, but it was very different with my mom. They didn't reach out afterwards, nothing. And I did not get a lot of contact. I got one call. They said, we'll check on you in about 2 weeks and ask you about the grief counseling. And actually they didn't reach out to me, the grief counseling division. I reached out to them because I'm like, I have to get over this. I have to get through this. Well, the one my dad had must have been like extraordinary because his nurse even came to his funeral.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, they were amazing. That's
a big difference.
I'm sorry.
That's a big difference. You know, they become such a part of their most important part of their life.
I know. And it was only a matter of weeks that he was in under hospice care before he passed.
You know, one of the things that I loved about hospice was not only did they take care of my mom, but they took care of me too during that point. And, you know, I got a hug almost every time I went in there. And, you know, they were telling me, you know, Laura, you need to get some rest. In fact, and I was really, really, God, I was so exhausted by the time that week was getting towards the end of that week. And she said, you know, you really need to get some rest. And I said, well, I was just thinking about maybe sleeping at home tonight because I'd been spending the night at the hospice. She says, well, your mom is stable. So I think that's a good idea. I think you should be okay. So I went home and 3:30 in the morning, the phone rang. So she telling me that she had passed.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, you know, I really was so exhausted that I'm sure she probably waited till I went home. Right. I know that's very common that people don't want to die in front of you, or, you know, They like their own space, and I've heard that so many times. They'll wait till you go home, and I'm sure that's what happened.
I'm sure it is too. And our loved ones, like your mom or any of our loved ones, when they pass, they don't want us to grieve forever. I mean,
No, certainly
I'm sure
not.
they want us to remember them and remember all of the good memories, but they want us to move on with our lives, but it's not easy to do at all.
It's a really good point that you make. One of the other reasons that I was so insistent on getting this grief counseling is because not only did I not want to live in pain for the rest of my life, but I have to live my life. Mm-hmm. I can't be living in sadness for somebody else. I have to live my life. I'm here for a purpose. I have a job to do. I have a mission. I have a family to take care of, myself to take care of. And I'm here for a reason. And I need to be able to fulfill that reason and that purpose. And I can't do that if I'm in pain. I can't do that if I am focused on the life of somebody else or the death of somebody else.
Right.
And so the grief counseling helped me realize that, this grief is going to be with you for the rest of your life, more than likely, but these are the tools to handle it. And this is the tool to help you live your life and be who you are. There were so many high points and so many tools to just remind you of what is important in your life as well. And that is taking care of yourself so that you can do what you're supposed to be doing here in this world.
That's right.
You still certainly get the healing that you need from, whether it's a massage, whether it's a grief counselor, whether it's sitting on a curb talking to your best friend or boohooing or whatever it is, volunteering, whatever it is that help you honor that person that you cared about and loved, or animal that you cared about and loved, so that you're not forgetting them, but you're just not living in that pain and living their life or the circumstances of their death.
Yeah.
And I will say when my brother Wally passed away, he passed away about, it's been 4 years now, and he had cancer. I stayed with him for a couple of months until and was with him when he passed. But shortly afterwards, and we were always very close. And so we've had many conversations after he passed, actually, but maybe a couple of weeks after he passed away. And I'd gotten a few hellos from him, just, I'm fine, everything's okay. Mm-hmm. But I would start to catch myself revisiting the condition he was in, the pain he was in, or the circumstances, or, of his circumstances. And I was, cry every time I heard that and starting to feel terrible. And he said he just showed up out of the blue one day. He said, "Laura, knock it off. I am up here. I am not back there. So from now on, I want you to look forward and look up. Do not look back, because I am not there anymore." I'm like, okay. You're not there anymore. I'm not there anymore. And he was so stern. Knock it off. Stop looking back. Okay. He said, I am not there anymore. Okay. And it took about a month. Got to keep catching myself from feeling bad about his situation, to stop myself from going down that road. And I had to stop myself, but I really tried to use that with my mom too. And something else that I experienced, and I'm sure everybody else has at some point, was with my mom's situation. And she was in such bad shape. I started to second guess myself that maybe I should have moved her to another hospital. I should have suggested this. I should have done that. So I was starting to feel really anxious about all the things I should have done. And then I thought, wait a minute. And it's like a train going downhill. It just started picking up speed. And I'm like, and I know logically this is not right. This is not the right way of thinking. I'm like, nope. the outcome would not have changed because her back is going to be broken. She'd never recover from it. And she would always be in pain she'd be in bed for the rest of her life. So the outcome still would have never changed. And so I really had to catch myself a couple of times of, oh my God, I should have moved her. I mean, I've been, I was terrible. I caused her more distress or grief. And I'm like, oh, no. It was like slamming on the brakes. So I started to go down that road a couple of times, but then was remembering, no, the outcome would be the same. There's all kinds of professionals looking after her. And I'm sure at this point that she just made the decision to go.
Well, those are really hard decisions to have to make for someone that you love. So you're always second guess yourself, always.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. And I had to really understand that in the big picture, that was not appropriate for me to do that. Really wasn't. And so it was a challenge. And every once in a while, it still pops up in my head still. Probably happened about 2 weeks ago. And like, oh my God, what if I moved her to Manatee Memorial Hospital? Or no, her back would still be broken. Nothing would have changed. Nothing would have changed. And so I have to pull myself off of that train track going, speeding downhill. Same thing with my brother. So it's really hard to sometimes not get into that frame of mind where you just relive or rethink the worst. It's easy to do, but it's important to get help of some kind, change your way of thinking. I don't know, pinch yourself, but do something to stop yourself. And I just cannot express enough how helpful the grief counseling was for me. And I can imagine that most hospices will offer grief counseling at no charge, even if you have not been a patient there. If your loved one has died, they think within the last year or something, you can get for no cost. That's pretty standard, I believe.
Wow.
So lots of opportunity. I know they have group counseling and one-on-one counseling, and you have to determine what's right for you.
Exactly.
But in talking to James, my counselor, I finally kind of got to a point where I was very honest with him about, really opened up to what I don't normally do. And that felt good to be able to express my true feelings and true thoughts and get a lot of validation. That was really helpful in, healing my anger as well. I was like, man, I don't know. Should I say this out loud? I think I'm a horrible person. You know what? It's too bad. I'm not a horrible person. I know I'm not. But, if he does think that way, I don't know what to do. But I have to,
Yeah.
I have
but
to do
he was
something.
very non-judgmental and very unbiased, right?
He was very supportive and actually he saw some things that he highlighted. He saw them right away and was able to point out to me and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right. Made me think. So it took a lot off of me, a lot of, not just the sadness, but the anger, the hurt, the justification, I guess you could say, and telling me that, the validation. It's like, oh, okay, I can let that go now. I can let that one go. I can let that go. I just let go. Ooh, bye.
What a weight that's been lifted.
Unreal. I was so happy. My last meeting made me so happy to have made that. It just, like I said earlier, it felt like an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I was really proud of myself for going because I didn't want to. I really didn't want to. I'm like, I do not want to go through this grief and relive this again. I've already been through it. I'm tired of it. But I just, had that fear of being in pain. So I can't do that. So I was very proud of myself for doing that. And I think that for anyone that is still grieving and will be grieving in the future, keep in mind, consider grief counseling. Look, I know there's plenty of opportunities out there. And there are a variety of ways of doing the counseling. Like I said, I know grief, Zoom meetings, one-on-one. There are so many different ways you can do it, but it is so healing. And I cannot describe how healing it is. It healed my soul, it healed my heart, healed my body, because, every time that I left, my body didn't hurt so much.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a nice relief too. I wasn't living on Tylenol or Motrin anymore. I don't know what it is about grief, but it can really hurt your whole body, right?
It does. It affects every part of you.
Yes.
Physical, emotional, mental, spiritual.
Yes, it does.
Every level. Yes. Now,
And interesting.
Oh, go ahead.
Let's see, interestingly enough, I had a very difficult time connecting spiritually. I didn't want to have anything to do with anything on a spiritual level while going through this process. And I found that a little bit interesting, but I also knew it was okay. I knew that I was still being supported spiritually, and I knew it was okay not to to have that going on at the time. I think it was just too much. But it was a little bothersome a couple of times. That's like, oh, I can't even, I don't want to do it. I just don't want to. I love you guys, but I don't want to talk to any of you. I don't want to hear anything. Don't want to talk. Just leave me alone. And I knew that it was okay. Yeah. That was a first for me, but I thought, I just can't. Sorry, I just can't do it.
Wow. You probably don't realize it, or maybe you do, but going through the grief counseling, that was a form of self-care.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. It was one of the most important things for me.
Mm-hmm. How long has it been since your final session?
April.
Wow, that's been a little while.
April or May.
Good for you.
Oh, it's right around Mother's Day, right after Mother's Day, so middle of May. Not very long.
Yeah. And how do you feel now? I mean, you still feel like you're doing really well?
I feel like I'm doing great, really great. I can talk to my mom and feel good about it, and I know she feels good. She has a really bright energy, a happy energy that I haven't felt from her in a long, long time.
Wow.
It's interesting. I spoke with a friend of hers who's 90 years old, very dear friend of hers. And she says, I hear your mom's voice all the time. She talks to me all the time. And yeah, I hear from her too. So it was really nice to know that she's still reaching out to her friends, and as well as me. And Carol Ann said something to me the other couple of weeks ago that my mom said, I've got the dog and you've got my cat. And all right.
Wow. Oh, that's really, I'm really glad that, this avenue presented itself for you. I think I remember getting a couple of letters saying, if you're depressed or whatever because of this, give us a call. But I don't ever remember anybody, but I don't really remember the first 6 months after my mom passed either. I was just like, the grief was almost unbearable. I think that thought never even occurred to me.
Yes, I see what you're saying. And I'll be honest with you, I would have never in a million years wanted to go to grief counseling. Like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm an old hat at this. I've been through it quite a few times. But what scared me, and it scared me. People saying that I'm still crying every day for my mom after 13 years or however many years, and that, oh my God, I can't, no. I can't do that. I can't be in that kind of pain. And that really prompted me into action. That and the hospice nurse making that comment, because I thought, geez, even the hospice nurse needs grief counseling. Oh, man. I remember thinking that, but she said it helped me be myself again. I didn't know what that meant at the time.
Yeah. But you do now.
But I do. And taking care of yourself comes in many forms. but allowing yourself to go through the process. I know at one point I thought, man, I'm so anxious and so full of angst and all the, the terrible feelings that comes with it. Maybe I need to take something to like, calm down a little bit, not calm down, but just be able to relax a little bit. And I thought, no, I need to go through this. I need to go through it because it's not going to go away.
Right.
So I can call my doctor and say, I'm having a hard time. Can you prescribe something for me, a little something for me? But I thought, no, it's not going to change. It's just going to delay.
You have to feel it in order to heal it.
Yeah. Yeah. So buy big boxes of Kleenex. If you don't feel like talking to your friends or your family, that's okay. You hang out and watch TV or don't say anything, but just having sometimes that energy there where maybe they visit you for a short period of time, checking with you, because sometimes it's too much to be around other people and other people's energy. It's for me, it was just, it was just too much. And so I would have, little short conversations with people, and that was good. I knew that I'll tell you what was really wonderful is receiving cards, actual cards in the mail. My mom's friends, very old school, would send me sympathy cards with a nice note, really nice note. That made me feel so good. And then a couple of her friends would call me and say, "How are you doing, Laura?" And I thought, well, this is so nice because it's her friend, her friend, but she's calling me to see how I'm doing. And I thought that was really, really thoughtful. So we had some fun conversations, and they look at death a little differently when they get to that age.
Yeah. Very true. Well, you've got a lot of people out here supporting you, Laura. I see lots of wonderful comments. So I'm going to read a couple to you. Joyce is here listening to your story. And Kim and Devin and Linnell. Linnell says, more time for you and your beloved. Robin says hello, and she's driving right now, so she's listening.
Hey, Robin.
Carol Ann said, hello, beautiful ladies. Thank you for sharing your experiences. And Sarah said, great job, Laura, on taking care of you. Also very proud of you for being here with us tonight, sharing your story.
Thank you, everybody. I know that so many of you were sending so many prayers, and that really made a difference too. It was pretty hard for me to, like I said, connect spiritually during that time. So, but I knew that many of you were praying. You and Tiffany and Carol Ann and Joey and so many people were sending prayers that it made a big difference just to know. It was sort of like, okay, we're going to take it from here. You do what you got to do, and we'll take care of you on this end.
Yeah.
So that helped a great deal. So I was like, okay, I don't have to worry about that.
Well, those didn't go just for your mom. They were for you too.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
I
felt it. Believe me.
Energy can really help.
I felt it. There is amazing. Sometimes it's just like, oh boy, I just feel like I just got this huge hug. It was so comforting. But there are times when I could just feel that loving and healing energy coming in.
That's awesome. Devin said it was a very heartfelt show.
Thanks, Devin. And so there's not a Kleenex in sight in here. I'm pretty proud of myself, doggone it.
That's awesome. But see, this is, everyone can relate to grief because we all go through it at some time in our life.
And many times in our life, for the most part. And so that's why it's really important for me to make sure that get help if you feel lousy. And when they say, well, are you feeling depressed? Depressed to me kind of has a negative connotation, or maybe you don't know if you're depressed or not. Not everybody realizes they're depressed.
Right.
And you're certainly not thinking clearly when you're in this kind of grief. I didn't know what day
Oh,
it
no.
was. That was kind of challenging. It was kind of foggy there for a while. Like, what day
Oh,
is
yeah, I
it?
remember that fog. I
And
remember that.
that's normal, it's normal to
I
be in
know.
that fog. And it's you don't really know.
And
So
it's almost like you have like amnesia because you forget like everything. You can't
yeah,
remember anything.
yes. So, get in there, make an appointment, go for a meeting with the grief counselor and tell them, let them help you, because it's just amazing what they do. They
Yeah,
get it, they understand, and they can guide you to the next step and tell you, you're going to be okay. This is
yeah,
going to be a process. It's a
definitely.
journey, and it's okay.
And you're
Um,
going to learn a lot from it, a lot about yourself, a lot
yes.
about life.
Yeah. On death.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
I'm filing a complaint when I talk to God again. I'm going to file a complaint about how complicated all this is. I think it's ridiculous since we all go through it,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it
maybe
is.
maybe God will change it for us all then.
I'll let you know. I'm going to call tomorrow.
Okay. Joyce said she's been talking to a friend who lost her son a little over a year ago. She also took ownership of his dog a while ago, and the dog is older and sick. It's an everyday conversation now over a year. Joyce, I'm going to suggest that you um, let your friend know about this show and let her watch it, because she might get some real good information that might really help her, because it sounds
Some
like
relief.
just hanging on to all of that grief.
My James, my grief counselor, brought up some very interesting points, that sometimes people will not let go, and they just won't. And I'm not sure if it's they're afraid they're going to lose a connection. I don't know the
Mhm.
many reasons, but there are people that just won't let go. And I thought, man, that's got to hurt so much. That just has to hurt so much.
That was
So
my
if
mom.
she can get somebody to talk to and let them help guide you to the next step. And no, it's not going to be an overnight fix, but every day gets better.
Yep.
Every time gets easier, and you can be yourself again. And it's so important.
It is. I agree. My mom, she grieved for her mother, well, until she passed away, until my mom did, and for my dad as well. I mean, I,
Mhm.
I, I think that's what caused a lot of her physical pain that she had and everything else, because she hung on to that, and there she would go through like certain times of the year where for like 2 weeks, like you could hardly be around her because she was so in her full blown grief, and she wasn't in a very happy mood. She'd snap at you a little bit, but she'd do a lot of crying, and then you'd figure out what day it was and be like, oh yeah, okay, I see what's going on. But she was never interested in, I don't think, moving past that, because for whatever it gave her, she had to hold on to it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very sad. But so, ladies and gentlemen, if you know somebody that's suffering, if you yourself or just talk to a grief counselor, talk to somebody, take care of yourself, because you have a mission in this world and you need to fulfill it, and you need to live a good and happy life and be healthy. And if you are stuck on somebody else's life and or death, then you
Mhm.
can't do that. It's
Exactly.
just not possible to do both. So please go out and look up local hospice for grief counseling. I guarantee you that it will make a tremendous difference in your life and hopefully somebody else's.
Yeah.
So thank
You
you,
know,
Ruth, for having me on tonight.
well, thank you for being here, and sharing your story, because I know it's going to help a lot of people. But I love this comment here that Marcia made. She said, when babies are born, they cry and we are happy. When people pass, they are smiling and we cry. Very true. Very true.
Yes, what a beautiful place for them to go, and we're here wondering. Why? And there they are going, yes,
I know.
I'm free.
I know.
I can walk, I can play, I can do all these fabulous things. And we're going.
Wow. And it must be so amazing feeling. I want to thank you so much, Laura, for being here and sharing your story. And don't forget, nobody else knows this yet, but except for you, me, and Tiffany, but August 3rd, you're going to be back, aren't you?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
And you're going to bring your cards so we can do some readings?
I am, and I'm going to use your I am manifestation cards too, because I think they're absolutely beautiful. And so I am going to do that too. We're going to be all about the angels.
Awesome. I have to share something with you. Check this out. Can you see it?
New ones? Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, you were the one. You were the reading I had with you a while back, and you were telling me how I was going to be doing another deck of cards with the butterfly on it and all that. Remember?
That's right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show you that. But I know we're over on time.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Yeah. Please go, be happy, be healed, and live your life. You're here for a very important purpose.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ruth.
Next week. Right?
Yes, come back next week.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Appreciate you being here. Everybody, have a good night. I will see you guys next week. I love you all. Good night.
Become a Goldylocks Productions VIP patron.
Receive exclusive access to live stream special and other epic perks. Join the Goldylocks Productions VIP community today.